All right, so today I just wanted to talk about modular framework when coding on Roblox Studio. I code on Roblox, and I find that using module scripts to code is a lot faster and easier, and sorry, organizes your code so that you really, you know, don't have to work with like messy code. Um, and honestly, it just makes coding easier because it allows you to think in a way where certain codes are just gonna work on certain small functions, and you can just build your way up from those small functions, which make it a lot easier to build on top of pre-existing code. So like, for example, this is the server framework, and this is like the only server script that's running when the uh, server, like the game starts. And basically, all I'm doing is initializing the different, uh, module scripts here, and it allows me to control exactly when each script will run and how it will run. Um, so that's like another bonus of the modular framework. So, for example, I'm basically requiring the data manager, and I want to make sure that the data manager runs first before all these other modules. And I'm using init here. If you go to the data manager, um, it's going to, if you go to the init function real quick, it's literally going to just run this on player added function, which basically just loads the data of players already in the game. And then you're gonna see that um, basically, yeah, it's just gonna load the data of anyone who joined the game. Um, yeah, and so for anyone that doesn't really know what a module script is, it's basically just think of it as like lines of code, like a script that doesn't um, run until you require it from another script, basically. That's all. Like that's the basic thing. It would not run until it's required from another script. And the reason why it's useful is because multiple scripts can like require the same like module script. And like let's say for example, uh you had a like public function, which is basically a function that, like for example, this is a public function. Multiple scripts can access this function. So you can see how this would be useful if like you had a module function that just calculated addition. Let's say that, you couldn't already just do print, 1 plus 1 in a script. Let's say you couldn't do that. You could make a module script that would just add two numbers and return it. And you could require that from like any script. So you can see how that's useful. Um, so yeah, I'm able to basically control when scripts are run and how they run. So I specifically want players' data to like be initialized for any player when the game starts, or like loaded, initialized. Um, and then in the player handler, we require the player handler, and then you could see in the player handler, I'm just like creating functions and connections, and you can see that here I connect the player added when I require the player handler. And this connection actually fires the signal manager. We're going to talk about that later, but it's basically going to tell the data manager um, to load the player's data for anyone that joins the game. And so you can see how like modular scripts can be powerful because it allows you to like have certain code organized. Basically, like the player handler code is organized here, and if I want the player handler to like communicate with the data handler, all I did was create like a signal, which is basically like think of it as a remote event. And if for anyone who doesn't know what a remote event is, it's just uh, it's just like a signal. Like if I wanted to communicate with you and I said, whenever I flash my light, like my flashlight, I want you to like wave. And so it's kind of like that, where like it just sends a signal with the player that joined the game. And then this guy, this piece of code over here, is just receiving the signal with the player that joined the game. And then it's saying, oh, wait, we want to load that player's data. And so you can see how, like, with other modules, you know, scripting in a modular framework basically allows you to like communicate between scripts a lot faster, um, and have like not code not like so like bunched up together. Imagine we had like one script, and in this script we had the data manager, and inside the data manager we wanted to um, load the player data of anyone who's already in the game, and then we wanted to connect the player added function so that anyone who joins the game also like well, their data is also loaded. But imagine if we wanted like other functions like connected when the player is added. Like, what if we had a feature where we wanted to move their character to like a certain location on the map? Like, it would be easier to basically create another player's that player added connection. But like, you know, imagine a game where you had so many connections, it would kind of just make code messy, maybe you needed to disconnect the connection you made just for cleanup, just to make your game like not so laggy. It'd be hard to disconnect every single connection you made. And so you can see if I only have a connection to the player added in one module, and then I had like a function or like a signal to tell the data module to like load the player data, and then I had a signal to tell another module to send like the player's character, which we do have a character handler, just to send the player's character to a different place. It becomes a lot easier, and organizes your code so much better. So you see how like module scripts basically are very powerful in that you're just more organized. You're allowing your code to be more specific, and it's a lot easier to build on existing code. For example, if we wanted to connect something to the player added, we just need a like signal fire. I mean, signal fire, fire a connection to the appropriate module. I mean, you don't have to do that exactly the way I did it, but like you can see like if we had like a module within a module, or like we just required the module here, we could just fire that module and the function to that module to like move the character. I'm not like explaining this well, but I hope you guys are like understanding. Um, but yeah, I guess I could talk about now, like why to create like functions. Like, what's the point of creating a module script that doesn't really do anything when you require it? Why don't we just like write code like print 5? Because when you require the module, it will just print 5. Because if you think about it, when we required the module, it connected these events to when the player joins the game. And so why do we do this instead of why don't we do this instead of just creating functions that don't run? And the reason for that is that, let's say for example, we wanted to request a team change multiple times. We could create um we could like I mean we could create like a signal for that, right? And the signal would just keep running the code like an event. It would just be the code inside the event, right? But it allows us to like work it allows us to run certain pieces of code um at a specific time. Like, let's say every single time someone wanted to request a team change, right? If we had all this code that actually changed the player's team, that processed how to change the player's team, you're making the code kind of messy. And like, let's say you had other stuff that's going on when you request a team change, you're gonna have like code that's like hundreds of lines long, when you could just create functions that do specific tasks and you could call them from anywhere. What if we wanted to request a team change because of us like a different event? If we had all the request team change code in one block, and that specific block worked for like when the player changed their team, it would work differently from if like the server was specifically telling, change the team of this person. So it allows you to reuse code a lot easier. And so you can see like how creating functions in a modular script allows you to reuse code a lot easier, and target specific code that you can just use over and over again. And I mean, you also don't need to have events that are like connected when the server is run. I could create like an init function, and basically, whenever I call the init function, it's then going to connect. When the player is added to the game. But if you think about it here, um, we want to load everyone's data, right? And then we want to make sure immediately after, anyone who joins the game, their um their code, their data is going to be loaded. If we had an init function, we'd have to wait till the module script is required, and then we'd have to connect it, which in most cases is not going to be a problem because like the code's going to run fast. But imagine if like in your module it also required another module, and in that module, you know, you yielded something in the require, which you probably shouldn't do, but let's just say you did. Then a player could join in between the time that the module is finished requiring and you actually connect the event to, handle when a player joins the game. And so that can also be fixed by not having any yielding script, like a wait, for example, when you require the script. But you never know, like if you might need it, So just being able to code, you know, sh- like lines outside of the module when you need to, and also within function, is also powerful because it just gives you more use cases, and that's another reason why you should use module scripts. So you can see basically in the server, the server is basically controlling everything. Um, and of course, you're gonna have events that are firing, but those are just events. And so you don't have like a bunch of code that's running constantly at the same time. You don't have large blocks of code. You just have like certain pieces of code that are um, running at um, specific times, and so that just makes your game experience a lot easier. Also, um, I'll talk about remote events and why you should use remote events like in a different video, but I just wanted to like showcase like why you should use module scripts, like why they're powerful. Um, you can use them to like organize your code. Um, and you can see like I have different module scripts controlling different sections of my code, and as you can see, I mean it works. Also, of course it works, but yeah, I mean it makes everything a lot smoother. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to showcase that.